Welcome to Beyond Pipeline. We talk about how to win the inner game of sales. My name is John Haboush, and I'm your host. And today we have a very special guest. He's the founder and CEO of A Growth Story, Blake Williams. Blake, thank you for coming on today, my man. How are you?
What's up, John? I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, happy Friday, my man. Happy Friday. You're a man with a full schedule, so we really appreciate you hopping on today.
Absolutely, absolutely glad to be here.
Awesome, awesome. I love to start the interview here. You have a really diverse background. You've been an army sergeant, you've done some investing, you've done business development, you led marketing teams. You're now, leading a startup. Like, can you help us understand just like where it all started with you getting into marketing and sales, and we can kind of take it from there?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I went to school for economics after the military with my little brother, and I always wanted to understand, why people behave the way they did, and then try to model it. So that was super interesting for me. Then I got my MBA after that in innovation new venture, and that's what got me interested in startups. Oddly enough, I had a choice of either going to IBM as a consultant or going to the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company right after my MBA program. And I went to Goodyear and I got that experience of a big company. And um, it may be for a bunch of other folks, but I found out like after 13 months, I was like, let me try a different company. So I went to a $400 million company and I was kind of managing supply chain there. And I got to see the impact that, bringing a product to market had across multiple subsidiaries. Didn't like that after 9 months. Quit and went to another company, GE, and I lasted there about 5 days.
Okay.
I quit on my fifth day. They got my name tag wrong. I'm not going to say that's why, but that's literally all it took for me to say, "Hey, I'm going to tap out. Appreciate the opportunity." And I went to work for a startup down in Texas, and there I was the fourth one in, and we were doing AI right back then, and not the
Mhm.
GPT language model stuff. It was the standardize your data, normalize it, identify problems, in an order to cache process,
Okay.
and then run machine learning around it, right? And we would do that for a bunch of big companies. And how that led me to marketing is that somebody had to build the front end of these applications that were pretty custom. They were very small and that kind of thing. So it led me to do a bunch of research on UX, UI, and that kind of thing. And that's how I got here. That's how I ended up in marketing. And then after that, we were able to sell a piece off to a hedge fund. Went to a venture. I know I'm kind of reviewing my resume here, but
No, we do it.
went to a venture capital fund after that, which is a fun story. And then I, as a managing director, I was running, somewhere between 15 and 35 people, depending on the projects, helping big companies. It was venture studio think about how to launch portfolios of eight-figure startups. And I wanted to get into doing some outbound. I was carrying a $2 million bag,
Mhm.
right? So I had to generate $2 million worth of new business, and I needed some outbound going. And so I brought on a data scientist fractionally, and then a quick developer to run some stuff on like Beautiful Soup and what is it, Duck Soup or something like that. Bunch of things before LinkedIn outbound, was cool and got
Okay.
hammered back in 2017 and 18. We were already running that kind of game, and it was great to fill a pipeline. I asked for 16K to kind of step it up into a product so that it would make
Yeah.
it my life easier, and they said no. Uh, I went home that night and I incorporated a company. So the only problem with someone who can sell is that we can sell, right? Figuring out how to build shit, you can do that after. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Once you get underneath the contract, and I've built all of my companies that way, customer funded or slash bootstrapped, right? But the goal is to see if you can have an idea or a project and go out. If you can sell it and have people break with cash, you got a product. Now it's time to put, your shoulder behind it and build stuff. So long way to say that I incorporated on May 19th, 2019. And then by January, I quit. By March, we were revenue positive. And it was an ABM agency, having never been in an agency or in a marketing chair. But our first customer was a $2 billion company who ran a pilot program with us on partnerships. So that's how I got here.
Damn.
Story.
Damn. Um, That I feel like a lot of people, it sounds like you kind of like were having a hard time kind of finding your thing, finding your thing, and all of a sudden you kind of found it, right? And then you were able to really stick to it, and that's what you've been doing ever since, and built a really a quality expertise in it. Like I've heard you talk in interviews about like channel partners. You really know what you're talking. I want to talk about later on how you built that skill set because I think it's important. But
Yeah.
like, can you walk us through what it was like to just a struggle to kind of find your stride coming out of the army in terms of just like what you wanted to do and how what company you want to work at. I feel like a lot of folks really
Oh,
struggle with that in sales and outside, right? So can you walk us through a little bit about what that was like for you?
yeah, that's a great question. It was a kick in the ass coming out of the military, having already managed a bunch of people, been in life or death situations for over a year on time,
Hmm.
right? And then you come out and you're right back at the bottom of the food chain.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I did a couple of things between the military, but it was hard to adjust to find out what I could be good at. But my parents always told me, no matter what you're doing, try to be a pro at it. Spend the time to try to be an expert at it. So um, I went through my first job was that out of college was at Goodyear, and I was
Yeah.
in procurement, and I hated that job. Boy, I felt like I was like the heel of the boot on everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though I was managing $400 million, I was like, this is not what I want to do. But I thank God that I got good at it, and I went through McKinsey level 3 training, train the trainer, right? And now it helps me structure deal flow so that when I'm trying to sell something, and specifically the way that I try to sell is something that can't be shopped, and it's usually typically expensive. Um, but knowing how the payment term negotiations and all these other things, and how to, I write all my own contracts, and they fly right through legal, all this good stuff that I learned in a job I hated. Right. And so along the way, it's okay to hate what you do, not enjoy it, but try to be a pro at it no matter what, and suck up those
Yeah.
skills and learn from other people as much as you can. Because hindsight may be 2020, or maybe that's how things go together. But those skills have always come back, and they almost once a week I'm using those procurement skills.
Yeah.
Oddly
It
enough,
right. It sounds like, some of the challenges you experienced early on gave you some skills you needed to obviously be successful and effective today. What
yep,
what was it like mentally for you to walk through that and to kind of be uncertain and just like not liking what you're doing and then having and even just to get started? Because I feel like a lot of folks right now, even like a lot of people getting laid off, or a lot of people maybe just took jobs that they don't like right now just to like make income because they have families, or maybe again, maybe they're just they're just running out of money. Like, how did you
yep.
deal with, yeah, just like overcoming the challenge of just like being a job you didn't like and trying to figure out like what is it that you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, mentally it was tough. I don't think I've ever talked about this, but yeah, mentally it was tough because I came out of the military at 22, started college at like 25, finished my undergrad and MBA by 30, but I'm 30. So a ton of other people already have a decade's worth of experience on me. So I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball and I'm doing the wrong shit. Not a great feeling. Not a
No.
great feeling at all. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there's a couple ways you can go about it. And you can try to just jump in, suck it up, and work your way up from the bottom. Or you can get in a startup. And I was like, well, startup, that's what made a startup a very, very viable option for me, because the
Mhm.
option to start closer near the top was better. And that kind of helped my mental attitude. And it really was just attitude about it, right? Helped my attitude so that I could just not persevere, but just have the fortitude to just keep on driving and keep being good at what I was doing.
Yeah, it sounds like too the comparison of, oh, okay, I'm 30, I'm out of the army now, and other people have a decade of experience on me was intimidating.
Yeah, well, I'm not one to shy away from a challenge in any way,
Doesn't
shape,
seem
or
like it.
form.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I would say, it's not intimidating to me. It's 9 times out of 10, I'm confident in what my abilities are, and my ability to go learn a brand new thing, right? Which
Yeah.
is something I still practice today, and I keep that muscle strong, so that no matter what situation I get in, I can always try to go in and outwork that person who does have 10 years of experience. And even now, we look at the sales game right now, and I don't care if you've got 20 years of experience, 15 of that is probably shit that doesn't apply, no longer applies. So,
Oh, fair.
we might be on a level playing field here if I start to learn really really quickly from some people who really have an edge on the game.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to someone that is maybe feeling intimidated, or just maybe they're going for a position right now or a role, or maybe they're feeling, yeah, maybe they're feeling they just don't have the same experience that they need to yeah, just to be successful. Like what advice do you give them as they navigate like what role to apply for, or how to best position themselves for a certain role? Because I know a lot of rough sales reps are thinking about that.
Yeah, as you think about that, you want to look for the opportunity that's right for you. Don't set yourself up for failure as you go into a thing. There's a difference between, needing a job and then like hunting for a role. Don't confuse the two. You know what I mean? Because one will get if you're out of work, getting a paycheck is one thing. And then shopping for the role that you want takes positioning, it takes relationship building, it takes some backdooring, all of that kind of thing. And it also takes you investing in yourself to get training outside of what your companies have offered. Right. And I don't know that most people have that in their budget, but I've got a 22-year-old daughter, and right now she's got, somewhere around $300 or $500 a month from me to just invest in, even though I just paid for an education. Uh, there's still things that people are boiling down into consumable classes that you can take things away from, right? And it's not, well, this class will do the trick. It's that all of these classes will accelerate my learning curve
Yeah.
faster than I ever could, right? And then you try to apply it in whatever job you take or you have today. Um, and then network, you know what I mean? And network through those experiences, network with other people who have been through those courses. Um, People are going to get you a good job. You're not going to get it just applying on LinkedIn, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, I like that advice a lot. It's a combo of like get in touch with the right people, develop your skill sets, develop yourself, realize that everyone has gaps. You do too. I like that a lot. The skill development budget, it's something I have not heard a lot of people talk about. I really love you have it because I do. So I've been doing something similar for myself for a long time now. Yeah, like where did you develop the appreciation for skill development, and then how has that affected what you're able to do today as a founder and a leader?
Yeah, it's just stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like I said, I felt like I was behind the eight ball, so I
Yeah,
needed to find a way to generate some cash and then decrease the level of edge that other people going out for roles had on me, or going out for the same money. Because at the end of the day, I've been selling, and my last business was $7 million, and it was all principal led sales, not one SDR, except for the one that you're looking at, right? So I went out and built all those deals, structured the whole delivery, the program, that all of the things. Um, but yeah, I would say that if you're thinking about that, like it was just out of necessity that I had to find an edge, and it's there for the taking. You got folks like Morgan Ingram that are,
yeah.
or gap selling and things like that, and not any one of them is going to do the trick for you. Just like up steal my playbook thing, but you need to have 17 to 35 different tricks in your playbook so that you can respond appropriately to the context of the situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I like that a lot. What do you think makes people not invest in their skill set? Because that's something that I've really believed in, but I've seen a lot of people just as I'm coming up, and you've been around longer than I have, but I think a lot of people just don't invest enough in it. Like what do you think causes that?
Maybe just not being told, man. Just not being told. It's not something I was told. Like it was like, hey, go to. I used, I didn't have to pay for college because the military paid for it, but I didn't stop. Right, my undergrad, my master, my MBA, my master's in data science. So um, just continuously investing in myself gave me an edge that other people didn't have. Right, and if I can go into a situation and brief a C-suite team on a program that they haven't looked at before because it's pretty creative or it's pretty smart given what they're trying to do, um, and they don't have that skill set in house, then they're going to buy from me.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only
Yeah.
advice I need right there. Is like, if it can make you an edge in closing bigger, beachhead deal values faster, then you probably ought to start doing that.
Yeah, I think it makes sense on paper. I think people struggle to have the motivation to go and do that. And you're obviously a very motivated person. That's something that you've always had, or did the army teach you that? Like, how'd you develop the motivation? Now you, especially building businesses, you got, you have 4 children, it's a lot. Like, how'd you develop the motivation to do all that?
Yeah, I grew up. Both my parents were in the army, and in high school, I played football down in Texas. And
Okay.
in Texas, you start football practice. It's either the gym or yeah, it's usually the gym for your workout at 6:30. My dad would get me up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock with my brother, and we'd go for a 3, 4 mile run before we went to school. So it's just about setting your day up to knock things out. And I think being an entrepreneur, you wake up every day expecting something that doesn't go great. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Especially in the
Yeah.
0 to 3 million phase. So you wake up getting ready to get punched in the mouth by something. Um, you have to take every advantage that you can and create every advantage to get space from negative things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's what created that. And I also grew up poor. You know what I mean? We used to have to cut down trees and stuff like that to heat our house in the winter, just because we couldn't afford to do anything
Yeah.
different. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the thought of just having to work extra hard to just be at normal was been in me, my entire life.
Yeah. What was that? I do believe that I have a belief from my own experience that growing up with maybe like less resources than the average person is can only somewhat helpful and affects your work ethic and how you view life. What was that
Right.
like for you growing up like that? And then how did that shape, the person that you are today?
Yeah, I think I have high standards for the people that work for me or don't work for me, right? If and most people think or they used to. I don't think that's around very much anymore, but they used to say that a business is like a family. Um, it's more like a sports team, and it's no love lost. Listen, I run my business. I grew my last company to flip cash out to
Mhm.
buy an HVAC company. It was a 12-year-old business, and we were able to buy it, and that has its own steady stream of income, and that's like a portfolio play for us. So um, at the end of the day, when I evaluate you and what you're doing for me, um, my businesses have one reason. It's like one, make the customer happy, but ultimately a business exists to make money.
Mhm.
And if we are not delivering craftsmanship in what we do, right, you're not going to be at it very long, especially the way the teams treat marketing agencies. You know what I mean? They have a short shelf life if you're not delivering the right things.
Yeah. So it sounds like that upbringing kind of taught you to be, I don't want to say ruthless, but just be very calculated and like what decisions are we making? How do we move forward? Like think because I can't I feel like I share some of that with you. So I don't knock it. I
Yep.
actually respect it. But
Yep.
yeah, would that be fair?
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think it's ruthless. It's just a matter of like, here's the standards, right?
Yeah.
I graduated my MBA with a 3.93, not because I had to, but because the highest grade you can get was a 4.0, and that's just doing the right thing. That's it. There's no in between. If you got a 3.0, that means you didn't do all the work and you didn't do it well enough. That's all that is. So for clients, when they're stroking a check for us, every time we deliver work, they're always thinking about we're always thinking about we're earning our next check. We're always convincing them to continue to pay our invoice again
I
and
like
again
that.
and again and
Yeah.
on time. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. I love that
So
attitude of like earning the next check and like being very detailed and like very, yeah, your standards are really high, which I absolutely respect. And I think again, because like high standards are rare because they're high standards. I absolutely, where do those high standards come from? Because it is something that again I think is really hard for people to hold themselves accountable to. Everyone talks big, right? And I've been there, but then
right.
it's like when it really comes to it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. When I started Amp Factor, the way that I ended up in partnerships is that we were doing ABM and we were taking sellers' wish lists. So at this $2 billion company that was highly acquisitive, they had enterprise sellers that they had hired, and they came with their black book of relationships. And we didn't start there, but we ended there. They gave us this wish list of like Visa and Nike and all these people that they wanted to sell to, right? And we failed straight out of the gate. And um, when we think about standards, when we were selling $25 million a month retainers for a year, and then we 5x'd in that one client after we were able to pull the nose up on it, um, standards come from getting one of those contracts canceled.
Oh, okay.
$25,000 MRR will
Yeah.
tighten the ship real quick. And your tolerance for what doesn't get looked at and what doesn't get double QA'd and all these things
Yeah.
goes way down, way down,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
amazing how much we can learn from mistakes, things like that. What what were some of the key lessons from that challenge, from that mistakes? And I have a follow up to that is how do you use mistakes to learn now, even as again, you're a multiple time founder. Would love to dive
Yep.
into that.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, getting settled as a founder and a leader, having, not really come up in a bigger organization or anything like that, I kind of had to find my footing in trusting my gut. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
I like that.
And um, I was kind of listening to all the things about, not necessarily not being empathetic, but like, um, I guess being softer and or giving people time to adjust and all these different things. At the end of the day, the client's timelines don't adjust, and the invoice doesn't adjust, and whether or not they cancel doesn't adjust. So there really can be no slack, and it really changed on how I hire people. I try
Mm,
to hire really slow. I try to fire fast. Right, the second you're not delivering, you're gone.
mm,
Um, and and that just I need people who focus, and but I promote faster. You know what I mean? If people who are helping me make money in the business are doing a great job, they're making more money than they ask for. In fact, I always ask people, "What's the number that you're looking for?" And I beat that number just because I want to bet on you. You know what I mean? And that's my
yeah,
first good foot forward to show you that there's more money ahead. You know?
yeah. I respect that a lot. So
Yeah.
it seems like one of the things you learn from that mistake, losing that contract, is being, hey, like we got to have high standards, and we need to make sure we hold up ourselves to that high standard because the cost of not doing that is way too big, and that can be
That's it.
applied. Yeah, yeah, that
That's
can be
it.
applied to any deal or into any customer. I uh I like that a lot. How do you deal with mistakes though? Like, what is your process? Because I know being a founder and even just coming up through your career, right? You've done a lot of different things and you probably made a lot of different mistakes. I would ask,
Always.
what is the biggest mistake you've made in your career? And then how
Yep.
did you learn from it? And then like, what is your process for dealing with, failure?
Yeah. I think one of the mistakes is that I I brought on a family member to be a CMO. And not that that was bad, but it ended up going bad.
Hmm.
And that never works out, even though you always hear, never bring family in. I was like, I'm new to marketing. We went to from zero to $1 million in the first 12 months and in revenue. And I was like, well, I got a tiger by the tail here and I'm about to invest to grow more. I should bring somebody in who knows more than me. And maybe that wasn't the mistake. The mistake was thinking that I needed somebody else um, to give me what I didn't already know. You know what I mean? The
Hmm.
right answer was to hire somebody to delegate the work to, not necessarily change the plan. You know what I mean? And that kind of
Interesting.
thing. So, and it has to come down to self confidence. Again, being very new, learning a bunch of new information really, really fast, being able to put a proposal together, close the deal, contract, and all that good stuff. Now there's delivery, and then doing new things. Again, I can sell things that I haven't really done before, but make sense all day long, and then figure out how to get the delivery right. So the biggest mistake I think was not trusting my gut, not having enough confidence in myself and in what I think I know for sure. Actually, that brings me to a quote. And maybe I should lose this quote. It's from Mark Twain. It's not what you think you know that gets you in trouble. It's what you think you know for sure that just ain't
Yes,
so.
that's right. Yeah,
You know,
that's right.
or something like that, right? And that kind of like the hell with that quote, right? Because if you're confident about something, be all the way wrong on it. You know what I mean? And don't waffle. Don't go back to somebody else's strategy or any of that other stuff. Just keep working the problem.
Got it. It sounds like you were, and this is what I interpreted from that. It sounds like you almost brought someone in to be mindful of what you didn't know, and you allowed their opinion to sway what you knew in your gut, what you probably, could have or should have done. And
Yep.
that just kind of, okay,
Yeah, it
interesting.
watered it down. It watered it down. And the goal is, learn enough information that you feel confident. Once you feel confident, you know enough information. You know what I mean? Don't
Yeah.
shut the door on learning more, but don't back off your strategy. You know.
Okay. Okay. I like that. I think Jeff Bezos said too, you'll only need about 40 or 50% of the information to make a quality decision.
Yep.
And I think for a lot of people that are sales reps or even just think about starting their own businesses, I think that's a really hard thing to overcome. There's paralysis by analysis, things like that. So I want to skip ahead to, where you are today and just like how do you navigate that challenge and being able to make thoughtful decisions and being able to make good decisions in real time? I mean, you're constantly doing it, right? You're building your
Yep.
business, you're in the early stages. Like it's obviously a skill that you've developed. How do
Yep.
you how do you actually like know when you have enough information and how do you then
Yep.
make a quality decision? I want to be able to really diagnose that science.
Yeah, I think so what you were just kind of speaking to is this you know, what should we call it? It's like this is a decision effect or something like that, or
Mhm.
decision multiplier. But if you take a long time, say you're able to make, say, 10 decisions in 1 month, and you took a long time to make those decisions, and you might have been 70%, or say 90% right.
Mhm.
Um, and if you go faster and you're able to make 40 decisions and you're 60% right, you're probably going to have a better outcome at the very end of this thing than making just those small 7 decisions. And then the other thing on top of that is nobody's known for doing everything very well,
Yeah.
right? They get known for doing one or two things and absolutely crushing it better than anybody else.
Mhm.
So the goal is within the cone of your decision possibilities is to shrink that cone and then stay having enough conversations with your customers or whoever the relevant parties are that you would source information from to influence a better decision for yourself. Make sure that that faucet's always on, right? If that stays on, you're always going to stay at the edge of the market or at least up there with your customers or your prospects. And then again, making decisions consistently again and again and again and again. And the analysis stuff, it doesn't take that long because you already know all the information because you're always learning and updating, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you have a constant information flow in your particular world, right? You're CEO, you're a founder, and obviously you work different companies, develop partnerships, right? So you get feedback from
Yep.
customers, and that way you can make quick decisions because you're always in flow. Um,
That's it.
I like that. I like that a lot because I think the same principle can apply to making decisions if you're a sales rep, or if you're a founder in a different industry. I was just like, do your best to keep developing skills, do your best to keep getting the right information, but then you have to make a decision and be willing to adjust, to pivot.
Yep.
Yeah. Is that a
That's
mindset
it.
that can be learned, or is that something that you think either people have or they don't?
Oh yeah, no, it's a mindset that can be learned all day long. I don't even know if it's a mindset. It's just like you just got to be open to wanting to win as much as possible and then actually putting the effort behind it, right? Everybody wants to win, but put your money where your mouth is behind it. You know, if you're a part of different Slack communities, do you have your notifications set up on keywords for things that you are trying to learn about? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially if they're paid. Again, you shouldn't finish the week without having at least 5 conversations with people that you haven't talked to in 4 or 5 months. You know what I mean? And not buddies, unless you're selling to your buddies. Like my peers are folks who are in partnership leaders roles or they're in marketing, right? So I'm
Mhm.
constantly having conversations with those folks, not trying to sell, just building relationships, talking about what challenges they're up against, what we're doing, that kind of thing. And then, asking for their support.
Yeah. And then obviously business opportunities flow from that.
That's it. That's it. 100%. They come to me. We just got one with Deloitte and Workday, and that was just inbound walking through the door. Hey, I want to work with Blake. I know what he does.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What is the what does your life look like now that you're a founder, right? You're no longer an employee. Like I know a lot of, and I asked from the kind of context of a lot of like reps listening to this or sales leaders, they may want to start their own company one day. Like
Yep.
what does a typical daily life look like? What are some of the challenges that you weren't expecting? Would love to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. I started a couple companies, and my wife actually, she's up to speed on what that looks like. And so usually for the first 6 months of starting a company, there's a massive hill of work
Yeah.
that I try to take what most people would take a year or a year and a half to try to do. I try to truncate that and do it in about 6 months because, again, you have to get to a point to where you can sell something. And if you can sell something, then the world's your oyster. You know what I mean? But you have to
Mhm.
start testing that model and learning. So I would say if you're going to start a company, either do one of two things. If you're currently employed, stay employed and then build at night and in the mornings. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Oh yeah.
Um, expect it to take longer than it should. If you're going to go out for funding, that's a different strategy. Um, if you're unemployed and you're going to try to build, you need to make sure that your run rate isn't very long. You know what I mean? Again, that's the same principle that I have. If I'm going to get off one stream of income to go create another, then I only allot myself 6 months to get to cash. Right. If and that's my rule. If you can't go from idea to cash inside of 6 months, you don't really have anything. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Or you're going to use somebody else's money to get there. Or
Yeah.
if you've got 401k, you can liquidate that, or you've just got a bunch of cash and you're just sitting around ready to rock. I don't give myself, I don't, any of the money that we earn consistently goes into our portfolio, and that's not available for me to tap. So if I want to do something, I've got to create it out of at least less than 20K, right, to get started.
Mhm. Interesting. What so it sounds like there's kind of a couple paths you're thinking. It's either, hey, you could keep your job and then get going, test it in 6 months, get to cash, and get to cash means like first sale.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Get money.
got it.
Yep.
Or if you're
Yep.
unemployed, it's like actually only allow yourself 6 months of runway. If you can't get to something, then it's probably not even worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very 95% of startups fail anyway. So the odds are against you. And if you don't have some of the skill sets, like I just messed up so many things starting my first company that if you haven't learned some of those lessons in how long it takes, what to do, and what are the right things to set up, how to get it going, you're just gonna, the learning curve is too long. Or find a founder that has already gotten down that path and partner up.
Okay. Yeah, that can really expedite the obviously the learning process. But even people are going to have to get kicked in the teeth a couple times. It's just part. It's just a part of learning.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
One thing caught me earlier that you mentioned, but I also heard you say it again in I think it was a sales intel podcast. You talked
Mm-hmm.
about like focus and how I believe when you first started or when you were early in your career, you weren't quite as focused. You focused on many things, and now you really try to focus on one thing. And I'm paraphrasing some of this, but that was kind of the net of the overall. Can you can
Yeah.
you walk can you walk through what you meant by that and why it's so important to have focus on a particular thing?
Yeah. Yeah. I think well, the good thing is a lot of companies are out there trying to be everything to everybody. And you look at TikTok and like or OnlyFans, and people are like selling pictures of their feet, and they're making like $200,000-$300,000, which is funny and laughable. But there's a lesson in there that if um, through marketing, there's a market out there for almost everything, right? Globally. Question is, can you get the distribution? Right. And so focus allows you to appeal to a very specific type of audience, right? And not be
Mhm.
everything to everybody, but that hones all of your activities, like who you try to service and how do you message and all these other things. You don't have to be confused. So the more specialized you are, the less people that you have to appeal to. And I think it's great when people say no to you. You know what I mean? The more people that you have saying no to you, the more it shrinks your total relevant market of people
Mhm.
that you need to be able to reach. So
Yeah.
that focus either in your business concept or just in your what you're trying to go learn and better yourself with, or just your mission for your family, whatever those things are, your mission for yourself, staying focused and kind of reining in all the different
Mhm.
possibilities into a single path makes it easy. You know what I mean? And then making decisions becomes easy. Who do you go out to? What's your ICP?
Yes.
All these
Yeah.
extra things. What do you charge? How many conversations do you need to have and with who to be able to stay in front of the market or that kind of thing? It becomes very simple,
Yeah.
from that standpoint.
Yeah.
And I would also
Honing
say,
in. Yeah. Honing
go
in and
ahead.
knowing like because if you're we can apply this to life, but like if your TAM is not as wide, you can really hone in, be really specialized to over deliver. Then obviously you could expand that as it goes on. One thing you mentioned I did want to also talk about that I thought was interesting was mission. You seem to be very mission driven. you're a father of four, you're doing all this stuff. How did
Yep.
you go about developing your own mission and like articulating that for yourself? Because I think it's a huge challenge for people, especially going back to TikTok. They're distracted by, social and all this other stuff. Like,
Yep.
how do you get yourself to sit down and say, this is my mission and stick to it and have a motivation behind it that's enduring, right? Because clearly you've been doing this for a while. You're disciplined. How'd you
Yep.
do that?
Yeah. It comes down to, like, I did my undergrad in 2.5 years. And again, kind of
Really?
feeling about, yeah. Yep.
Bro.
I did it. I had to go through to 3 schools to do it. And I had to do it year round in summer and winter breaks and all the things. And then take a full, sometimes it was 18, 21 credit hours. I don't know how you measure it up, but I had to do that only because I just felt behind the 8 ball. And so, like, every time, you know, they always say, whenever you climb a mountain and you get to the top, there's always another mountain. Well, my goal is to sit down and map out the range, right?
Mhm,
And I kind of know what I wanted out of life, not necessarily what I wanted to be
mhm,
specifically professionally, but what do I want for my family and how do I want to live?
mhm,
And those things kind of shape my decisions on, well, do I start a company or do I go get a job being a marketer somewhere? um and some of my priorities were like, I need to be able to have big lump sums of cash get flipped out every quarter so that I can either invest in another business or invest in buying assets and things like that for my family. Like, one of my biggest things is, like, for this year we're trying to buy a 78-acre um, plot in the Smoky Mountains, and it's
okay.
actually a mountaintop. Um, so my biggest goal is to throw off $750,000 in free cash flow outside of what I pay myself or what it takes to get the job done. Um, that kind of shapes the offers that I bring to market, how I sell them, how I structure the payment terms. All the different things are influenced, so it doesn't become, I know what I'm going to give on, you know what I mean, in my negotiation, or what I'm going to sell. Um, to procurement, to the CEO, to the CMO, all the different things are shaped by that mission. So, like, I've always been mission driven, um, trying to go after the life I wanted to create. And if you don't have, like, my family, we have OKRs and we meet on them every month in our relationships and just our finances and all of these
Mhm.
things. We treat it like it's a project that we want to win at. You know what I mean?
Absolutely love it.
Um,
Can you break down for people what that looks? Because I didn't grow up with that. I've always found the concept interesting, and I like one day
yeah.
when I one day I'm a dad. I'm like I'm behind it to a certain extent. I'd love to understand like what your process is. You, again, feel free to withhold a certain, but like, what's your process for that? How would you think about that? Like, I'd love to because it's so
Yeah.
applicable to many other things.
Yeah, yeah, it was really born out of the need to be able to communicate better, just within our family and to my wife. And then,
Hmm.
you know, when we talk about the things that mean something to the other folks, when we're allocating time, right? Time is precious. We time block things to get the things that we want to do and need to do done, so we can go and do the other things. We got to make sure that we're investing that time appropriately so that the other folks in the family are getting what they need. So when we think about that, I talk to my girls about what skills they want to work on this year, whether it's being better at soccer or they want to paint or they want to learn X, Y, Z. Talk to my wife about what she needs from me, all those things. And then we talk about our family goals of what we're doing, what we're all doing to contribute to those things. It really came from a place of just being intentional in our relationships and intentional in the pursuit of the things that we actually want to get, because there was a couple of years where we were just kind of like doing the thing and
Hmm.
everyone's great, we're making money, but what are we running towards? You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And
Yeah.
what are we going to show in the process? You know?
Yeah.
So
How
yeah,
do you, I like that you ask or you're asking those questions. You're like, hey, like where are we really going? What really matters? What can you dive a little bit deeper on in like how you actually prioritize and like define what really matters? Because I think a lot of people know they have to get clear, but then there's 10 options and like, well, how do I set my priorities and say no to other stuff? Right. Like I
yeah,
like you how do you
yeah.
develop? Yeah, how can you if you had to walk someone through it, how would you do
I
that?
would I would say, they have vision boards and things like that, which are fantastic. And we have one because we went through the process, but it's like, sit down and write down and design what you want your day-to-day life to be and when you want it to be there. You know what I mean? So, like, when
Hmm.
I'm 48, I'm 42 now. Um, I want to have multiple streams of income coming through from older companies that I've already invested in. Maybe have a digital exit. Maybe not. Maybe it looks like having spent the past 10 years of being super present in my kid's life. It looks like, write down all those things that your life looks like and then start back planning what it's going to take. And people say you should have a 10-year goal, and you really should. What are you going to get done in this decade? Because it'll fly by if you don't grab a hold of the things that you need to take action on today to just be ready for what you need to be able to do in 6 years. You know what I mean? Um,
Yes.
some of those moves aren't going to be possible if you're not planning for them today. Yeah, and that's really what it is. So get started by designing what you want that life to look like, whatever that milestone is for you. Create that milestone, get fixated on it, and then that shrinks the cone of possibilities of how you get there. Now, every plan, doesn't survive uh, engagement with the enemy or action with the enemy, whatever it is called, the enemy life. But it always shapes how you consistently react to things, how you prioritize things, what's important, what's not. Does it match the plan? Does the plan need to change? Any of those things, right? As you
Yeah.
mature, all that all that stuff. I think there's some core things that you always should be getting ready to do, which is you should always be getting ready to have free cash flow to invest, right? Whether it's betting on yourself or betting in something else. Maybe you could ride the stock market, but that's just as good as gambling to some extent. But you should always be getting yourself ready. You never know what can happen in the economy. One of our rules, we make sure that nobody can take anything from us. You know what I mean? You lose your job, do you own your house? You know what I mean? Are you debt free? It's okay to leverage debt, but you should establish some principles that you're going to live by, and then do your best to get closer to those things. It's not an overnight thing, but you can work towards, just like whoever you want to be as a person. It's a daily decision to stay focused on those things and continuously work towards them. And you're going to mess up and that kind of thing, but designed from the end state in mind and back plan a whole decade.
Yeah. I love that you said the whole decade too, because I'm just starting to realize I'm 27. I'm starting to realize as I'm editing this decade, I'm like, you're right. The stuff you do in the earlier decade sets you up later. And I
Yeah.
didn't, luckily I was kind of flying blind, but I happened to do some, I happened to do it. And I was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
really helpful. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love what you said about that because it's so true.
Yep.
You gave a lot of really good nuggets there. I do want to dissect this a little bit. I know I'm double tapping, but I
Mm-hmm.
understand you gave us the structure, which I like. It's like, hey, like know what your priorities are, know what's important to you, know what skills you got to build, know where you want to go. Like, how do you actually get clarity into like what's really important? Because like everyone knows like, but like, how do you actually get clarity? And someone's like, hey, I get you. I know like I know what I need to do. Like, how do I actually define? I'm going to say no to this and yes to this, right? I think that's
Yeah.
really hard for people.
It has to come from education, right? If you can't make a decision one way or the other, it's because you don't know enough,
Okay, I
right?
like that.
Simple as that.
Oh, that's
If you
really
know,
good. That's a really good nugget.
if you knew enough, you wouldn't be paralyzed. You'd be like, nope, that's the wrong answer, and I'm moving forward on this. Or you can still be wrong. You know what I mean? But the goal is to get yourself educated enough about both options or all three options to be informed, and then rule out the other two.
Yeah, I like that. 'Cause I think I didn't have a good answer, but I like what you say. You gotta have more information because then whether it's wealth experience or whatever it is, and maybe
That's
you just
it.
pick something and then move on. I like that a lot. Um, want to talk about now a little bit with that in mind. Like you're a father of four. How do you balance all that? I know a lot of people listening are probably they're probably fathers or mothers and they have a girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. And like, I just
Yeah.
love to better understand. Even I'm curious, like, how do you balance all that and do what you do, man? It's nuts.
Yeah, it's sometimes being a dad's hard to begin with. Being a man is hard, right? Because you don't have a lot of people to go to. Being a leader is
Yeah.
hard, or founder, right? It's tough because you can't go to your employees, can't go to your VPs and that kind of thing. So you can only really go to other founders who kind of understand your experience. I think the way that I balance it all with my kids is that I try to make sure that I'm in gear. Again, I try to block my time. It's really just understanding you got two full-time jobs. Once you maybe three because you're married, right? But
Mhm.
the job and the kids and that kind of thing. So I make sure I block off the time. Again, we have OKRs. We make agreements, even though they're super young. They're still very, very trainable, and they love any time that they get with you, no matter what it is. So just being sure that we're being present and being structured around the time that we spend together. Like we have, I don't want to say rituals, but it's, movie nights, it's going to the parks and constant walks and learning new things.
That's
And we try to
awesome.
set
Yeah.
those things up at the beginning of the month. It's like, okay, what are we going to go learn together this month? And then we block out a time to make sure that we're doing that on that Saturday or on that Wednesday night or whatever it is.
Yeah, I love how intentional you are with your times. I think it's just so important that you actually plan that out and make the time. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
rare, but I really, really, really respect that. I
Yeah.
respect that a lot.
I
I
appreciate
know
that.
yeah, man, of course. I know we're coming up on time here, and I want to be respectful of your times. I know you have a lot going on. Before I
Yep.
ask the final question, where can people find out about you and yeah, learn more about what you're building here?
Yeah. Just hit me up on LinkedIn. You can go to growthstory.ai if you want to check that out. Other podcast shows and stuff like that. If you just Google me or something like that, they come up. Blake Williams at Growth Story. Yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me.
What are you building, by the way? I actually think it's pretty cool. I was doing some research. It's actually very interesting. I think the market you're in, especially with where outbound, like cold outbound's going and the need for intent and warm intros and stuff, pretty
Yeah,
fire. I'm not gonna lie. So you want to talk about that a
yeah,
second?
sure. We can plug it. So, Growth Story. So, my last company was Amp Factor, and we specialize in helping teams sell tall, deep, and wide into each other's customer bases. So, the
Mhm.
best way to get into a new deal is to be able to market to the audiences that you're, or market with the audiences that your future buyers already trust, right?
Mhm.
Or the businesses that your future buyers already trust. So, um, we would create the content. And for most partnerships, it's very random acts of partnerships. Most SDRs don't give a shit about another partner because they're over here
True.
in their business as
Yeah.
usual tech stack and daily workflows. But here's the thing is that if you spend the time and your partnership leader is doing the right thing, then you got about 7 partnerships that you should care about. I don't care if you're sales loft and you have 150 integrations, blah, blah, blah. Whoever you're selling to, that persona, that VP owns a specific workflow. That workflow is comprised of different technologies, right? And what we do, those different technologies, let's say ABM, you'll go from Apollo to Clay to HubSpot to Sixth Sense for intent data to Mutiny for dynamic landing pages to whatever else you're going to use in that set, right? That whole workflow sits underneath one VP. Your partners already have the trust because they're already in that tech stack. So you can get buying signals, you can get intent data, you can get intros from those folks. And it's way easier to come in when John refers me in and says, hey, you ought to take a look at what Blake's working on. You
Yeah.
mentioned that you were doing this. Dude, that's a simple sales cycle. Your demo is like, he's like, yeah, let me see what you got. He's asking for the demo. He's asking for the pitch. He's asking good buying questions. And then it's just about figuring out if now's a good time for you. If you have 100 accounts that you're trying to go out to, my goal as a SDR would be to like, I'm going to my partnership leader. I'm going to say, here's my list of accounts. I want to see which use Crossbeam or Reveal and figure out which of these partners that we have in our partner ecosystem can do an introduction for us. Right. I'd rather be going hard and deep on 60 accounts than on 100 and getting spread thin.
Yeah. Let's go back to
You know what I
focus. Yep.
mean?
Yeah.
And if it's just there for you to go ask about, I'd be asking about it, and do the same thing with your customers. Bring something to the table and make a deposit in terms of social capital and say, hey, I'll do these 5 intros to my current customers that I had great relationships with that are happy into these other folks, and then we can pull them in. So what Growth Story does is an AI that builds those assets so that both sides of the team can make those referrals and introductions, right? Landing pages, social content, blog articles, whatever it might be.
You've really
And
covered
we
the spectrum.
productize that partnership. What's that?
Wow. I said you've really covered the spectrum of content.
Yeah.
I thought,
Yeah.
okay.
And we're specialized, right? And most people will say, oh, that's niche. But it's not really, because almost every B2B SaaS company has integrations and has partnerships. You look at Microsoft, 98% of their global revenue flows through partners. That means that there's trillions and trillions of dollars already being handled by partners that know your customer, right? It's the simplest way to create and
Yeah, it's so
reduce,
smart, dude. That's
you
so
know,
smart, especially with the way cold. Because I still I've been outbounding for years.
yeah,
Outbound games changed, man. It's not. I mean, it's the principles are the same, but you got to be more thoughtful in like how you use intros and how you use intent data, and things are just different. It's just
Yeah.
a different game.
And outbound is still strong too. Like, but you have to have the right context. Like your company has to be investing in the right, not brand awareness and running display ads, not that shit. They got to be doing other investments in marketing so that your company is known for something, known for different points of view throughout the
Yeah.
market. You see this with Clay and Gong and Apollo. They're already known for different things in the market because they're doing that. They're creating content with folks that their future buyers already trust. And when they do that, whether it's as a paid influencer or just avid supporters or fans or great users, it makes it way easier to go out and field or set a meeting on Clay all day long. Cause it's like, oh yeah, I see Clay everywhere. I see XYZ talk about him.
Yeah, man,
I'll
I
take
could
that
sit here
meeting.
and jam with you about this forever. This is so cool. Yeah, this is cool. Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you. I agree with you, man. I mean, I sell Sprout Social. We talk about this all the time.
Yes.
That is a cool POV.
Yes.
Interesting. Yeah, so you obviously start a company. You see that trend continuing. Do you see outbound dying?
No, not
Okay.
at all. Not at
Okay.
all. When the market goes right, you go left. And a lot of people are trying to fumble around with what is the right. What are they going to switch to from a go to market strategy? And I think that, again, the context outbound is super powerful if your CMO is making the right decisions around getting you known for a point of view or a couple of points of view and
I
activity, and
like
your
the
product
POV.
supports it. That's
Yeah.
it. Outbound's super effective, right? Maybe your ACV needs to be higher nowadays because you got to pay people more. It used to be that it was smart at 25K. Maybe now that's 50K. You hear Adam Robinson talking about that kind of thing. But yeah, I think outbound is still wildly effective. The goal, again, just like playbooks, you don't want any single one go to market strategy unless it's crushing for you. If it's crushing for you, don't change it. But if it's not, then you want to at least grab a market basket of go to market strategies that play off of each other and then build the context for them to work right. Nothing
Right
works
on.
out of context.
Yeah, I love that plot thread for a long time, but I will get you out of here. What's the final
Yeah.
piece of advice that you would give a listener? You listeners are typically sales reps, sales leaders, but typically younger in their career. What piece of advice would you give them, keeping in context everything that you've done?
Yeah, I would say, just invest hard in becoming a pro at what you do and don't rely on your business to do it for you because their job is to maximize profits, not maximize your education, right? They're going to give you enough to get their job done and hit success, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to accelerate your trajectory. So go out and start gobbling up as many of those courses, start participating, find mentors. Even if you can't find mentors, start attending, webinars like it's your job because it is to go make more money. And your goal, obviously, well, hopefully your goal is to make $1 million a year as a seller. You know what I mean? Um,
Mhm.
Even I don't care at what stage of the career you're at, making $1 million is totally possible, but you have to have the skill set that comes in and shines.
Yeah, I absolutely
That's it.
respect that. Well, everyone, build your skills.
That's
Anyway,
it.
Blake, thank you so much for coming on. I learned a lot from you, and I just I really really appreciate it. As I know you got a lot going on, so thank you, dude.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate the conversations. Good
Yeah,
questions.
yeah, thank you.